There are questions about Mr. Farage's seriousness and whether or not he has actually visited Clacton or held any MP's surgeries. Surely he's had time to hold a surgery. I certainly would expect my MP to have held a surgery, or at least have planned, have invited individuals to attend a surgery by now. That's in Rugby. I don't know whether that's happened. I would point out I've already written. And I would hope Farage has at least made plans. But Farage may be too much of a scam artist, too much of a wheeler dealer, too much of a what do you call it? A ragamuffin, a wide boy, to actually bother with the real job in hand. James Cleverly has said that he should either decide whether or not he's a serious politician, or get back to doing social media and presenting the news, reading an auto cue that with the text that presumably has been written for him very well by the boffins in GB News. Today, the Alice de Silva Aguiar was buried in St Patrick's Catholic Church, or her funeral in St Patrick's Catholic Church in Merseyside has taken place. And she was described as amazing, caring, confident, but that wasn't the focus of Farage's contribution to the Southport situation. Instead, Farage chose to ratchet up the right-wing response. And Tommy Robinson, rather than focusing on the 3 girls who died, has focused on the fact that his Cypriot holiday has been ruined by people with long lenses. You know, the issue is not two-tiered policing. The issue is not who should be held responsible for the for all the rioting. The issue is these 3 girls who were stabbed and their families, and Farage and his like have had an opportunity. They've had time to reach out and support, and I don't hear any news that they've done so. It's not to say they haven't. Maybe they have. But the impression I get is that they haven't. James Cleverly, who's not somebody, again, who I want to rally around and genuflect in his general direction. He says, I think some of the things that he has framed as questions are clearly designed to generate traffic, generate digital content, and he needs to decide, is he a politician, a serious politician, or is he a social media content creator? As politicians, we have a duty to think very, very carefully about what we do and very, very carefully about what we say. He says, politicians must not intentionally reinforce gossip and rumour, particularly if it has serious world implications, which Farage's statements did. And so, the question that he will need to ask himself, and perhaps others as well, is, do you believe Parliament is an important institution where serious decisions are made and the country is governed, or is it just part of a PR operation for clicks and likes and monetized content? Now, I would emphasize that James Cleverly is as much responsible for failing to keep his eye on his job as is Farage. James Cleverly seems to think that the role of Parliament is for sloganising. It's the same problem. So he needs to take his own words seriously. But even if somebody, the point is, even if somebody cannot do the job well, it doesn't mean he can't give good advice to somebody else. So James Cleverly is a failed Home Secretary, but he has very good reason to put forward advice to Nigel Farage and to condemn Nigel Farage for his failures, just as others could condemn James Cleverly. Farage has talked about two-tier policing. That's not the job of a parliamentarian, to be openly denouncing the police. The same thing is true of Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson, an ex-Prime Minister, should have his nose rubbed in the dirt for the things he was saying, for the questions he was asking about the police. It's unforgivable of a former Prime Minister to add to the problems that we've got at the moment. He should be there backing up the present Prime Minister, as should Liz Truss, as should Theresa May. These people have been in power. They know what it's like. But at the moment, we need a single voice to come from Parliament. The opposition is there to question the government, not to cajole the people who are performing public services. They're there to make sure things are better. They're there as an icon of security, not to whip up problems for their own advancement. And, Elon Musk isn't part of our country, but Elon Musk's reach is significant because of Twitter. And it's time. It's time for people in power to take responsibility for what they do and what they say. And these people who've been elected to office, they're a different quality of people to the James O'Briens and the people who have got their platforms. Different quality. James O'Brien can ask questions. Farage can't. And somebody who has been in power, someone even like Jacob Rees-Mogg, should be bound by the prudence to ensure that they are respecting and supporting whoever happens to be in number 10, at least when it comes to the delivery of public services. Undermining that job is as contemptuous as going out into the streets and parading disaffection. Boris Johnson has a great deal to explain. Farage has a lot more to explain. The people who were actually throwing missiles and bins, I think their explanation is done. They've been arrested. And what happens to them is in the courts now. I cannot imagine that Farage is going to find himself answering questions to the police. I cannot imagine that Boris Johnson should, but they should be answering questions to themselves. That's where they should be asking those questions. Am I doing something, they should be asking, to promote the good of the United Kingdom? Or am I stirring up trouble? And the real telltale question, or the real answer, which gives it all away, is, in the process of stirring up trouble, is that going to benefit me? Am I going to see my social media climb? And if the answer is yes, that is not the job of a politician, is it? That's not the job of a politician. That's not why we elect a politician. And it's not the job of an ex-politician. Certainly not a senior politician. That's why I maintain, and I will continue to maintain this, that the former prime ministers and senior members of the former cabinet should be in the House of Lords, even if for a short period of time, because it puts on them a responsibility to shut up and to speak in the Parliament rather than in the newspapers or on social media. Now more than ever, we need this principle. We need to recognise that being in the House of Lords, yes, it might be a privilege, but it is more than anything else, a responsibility and a duty And it means that we know where we can find people. I think there's nothing worse than having a former Prime Minister running around the place so freely and contributing magazine articles and newspaper articles as and when he wants. It's outrageous. Utterly outrageous. And the thought that when he decides, he can come back. He should be in the House of Lords. That's Boris. And Farage should never have got into the House of Commons. He should have been in the House of Lords the moment Brexit happened.